Our next speaker is Dr. Henrietta Mann, who's also the president of the Cheyenne and Arapaho Tribal Council. And Dr. Mann, I would leave it to you, with you as a first language speaker, to pronounce the names of your tribes so that you can continue to speak about the road to Sand Creek.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dr. Roberts. And thank you, Jose, for welcoming us to this beautiful place. Today, the 150-year remembrance of a massacre of the people to whom I belong, the Tzitzistais, our kinspeople, the Hinano'ena. Beautiful, wonderful people who too were given life and who were thankful to see each new sunrise, each new day. And even today, there is much about which we can be grateful, or should be. Primarily, the great, mysterious, everywhere spirit who long ago placed us on earth to walk the road of life on this land that we were first to love, still love, and will always love. You know, it is right that we come to the National Museum of the American Indian. It is our center of cultural knowledge. It houses the spirit of the people. It is the museum of the first peoples of this land. The National Museum of the American Indian is a place where we can candidly discuss a troubled past. I especially want to thank those that thought and brought this exquisite place into existence. And I too serve my time in helping to build this place. 9 years on the Board of Trustees. And I want to thank all of those with whom I worked and those that brought this place of existence into reality. I also want to express my appreciation for those that work here and who lovingly care for our home and for our ancestors that have yet to be repatriated home, who are housed in the National Support Center in Suitland, Maryland. Those ancestors that I helped bring down from the Bronx in New York City here. They need to go home too. Finally, I wish to acknowledge the National Park Service, which cares for our land, our nation's places of natural beauty, and who today created a public forum to discuss a controversial topic, such as the Sand Creek Massacre. So in that context, this shorthand presentation is filtered through my eyes as a descendant of some survivors of Sand Creek. Dr. Roberts has given us an excellent view of that time in history. You will hear other esteemed speakers, but even in this day, we cannot discuss that time in the history of America, that Black Day, that time of dishumanity, that time where there was no love or compassion shown. This incident occurred on the Treaties in Cheyenne and the NMAI Road of Life in 1864, 150 years ago. But it didn't end there for us as Treaties. The nightmare was repeated 4 years later at the Washita River, known to us as the Lodgepole River in Indian Territory. And such cruelty, undeserved cruelty, forces a people to search deeply within to find understanding, reconciliation, and even the voice to talk about it. Treaties na NMAI fortunately had very good teachings and tribal knowledge that affirmed that they were created as a people of peace and good-heartedness. That fact is still true today. You can see it in the speakers, those that you will be hearing from later in the day. We're still a people of peace and good-heartedness, and we always were. This road of life that we walk is an old road. It is very old, and it begins at the time of creation. And it encompasses, for us, 4 periods of history. The first is the ancient time. And in the ancient time, it is said we lived far to the north and east of where we currently live today. The second period of history is the time of the dogs, when they escorted us and accompanied us into a different time and a different place. They walked with us into the third period of our history, into the time of the buffalo, or the bison as they are scientifically called. And even today, the Sutdayo, which make up the Treaties, are known as the Sutdayo Buffalo people. And they brought to us one of our highest ceremonies, the Lodge of New Life, known as the Sundance. And then finally, we have come through, as we walk this road of life, to the time of the horse. I am reminded of words of the late John Wooden-Legs and the late Ted Rising's son, who always reminded me that we still live in the time of the horse. It's just that they're under the hoods of these automobiles, and there are so many horses under them, and so many horses on those planes that we got here on, and that some of us will leave on, and those that you will drive home away from here. the time of the horse. Maybe at some point in time there will be a fifth period, but for now, those are the 4 periods that the old ones tell us about that make up this journey through those 4 periods of time. This road is an open road, and it leads into an unknown and hopeful future. On that long ago road, there was a special person who was gifted with moral wisdom and sent by Matt, whose name is Sweet Medicine. And he brought us our peaceful and ethical ways out of Norwest Bear Butte, located on the periphery of the Black Hills in South Dakota. And this person instituted the Council of 44 Peacemakers, of which we have one in the audience today. Former Representative and Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell, a peace chief, a member of the Council of 44. Good men, humble servants, whose heart and mind work together for the welfare of the people. And with his ability to see into the future, Sweet Medicine influenced the people and warned them about the strangers who would one day take their land and those who would seek this yellow earth, the gold medal that lies within this land we look upon as sacred and as mother. This yellow metal that can make some men crazy. This happened in 1859 when gold was discovered in Colorado Territory, and the slogan became Pikes Peak or Bust. 100,000 of them streamed across our lands searching for their fortune. Just them alone. There were others, many others. There were so many others that they made a road so wide, I'm told it was about 2 miles wide, and no buffalo would cross that bare, denuded land. So that placed us in a very precarious position in terms of our survival, even. Not to mention the kind of conflict that occurred. And just as Sweet Medicine stated, this land became an issue, and finally there were treaties. I'm eager to see this new exhibit on treaties that Suzanne Harjo curated. But treaties of perpetual peace and friendship. Perpetual. Perpetual, in my estimation, I think means forever. And these treaties of peace and friendship became the vehicles for making huge land cessions or reducing land cessions for the First Nations. And this was evidenced by the 1861 Treaty of Fort Wise. And in it, the Tsistais and the Hinano'ena relinquished the Rocky Mountain Front Range, a huge piece of real estate that saddled 4 states, parts of 4 states, Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, and Kansas. Huge, a huge land area, the Rocky Mountain Front Range. And that had been guaranteed to them in the earlier 1851 Great Horse Creek Treaty that we know as the Fort Laramie Treaty. The Great Horse Creek Treaty was the only treaty agreed to by all of the Cheyenne peace chiefs, the Council of 44. But jumping fast forward, Black Kettle, Davido, and Little Raven were first to sign the 1861 treaty, which relinquished all of those lands guaranteed us in the Horse Creek Treaty of 1851, the Rocky Mountain Front Range. We were land barons, which is so tragic when you stop and think of the small remnants of land that we've managed to hold for ourselves, land. And as a member of the Council of 44, Black Kettle committed and he recommitted himself to peace in several treaties. In the Colorado of the time, as has already been pointed out, however, peace was an impossibility, considering the continual and supposedly prohibited immigrant travel across and settlement on Indian treaty lands. Trespassers, essentially. Trespassers. What do we do when someone comes illegally into our lots of land? Well, these trespassers and their incursions created conflict when the Cheyenne and the Arapaho attempted to protect their lands, guaranteed to them by treaty. And that, in turn, resulted in military retaliation. It became a very vicious cycle of brutality. It was also a time of fear and hunger for the people with the disappearance of the buffalo. It was the age of manifest destiny. And in response to Territorial Governor John Evans's proclamation that promised safe haven and food for friendly Indians, some Cheyenne and Arapaho bands reported to Fort Lyon. And Black Kettle and Left Hand were told to camp at Sand Creek. Big Sandy Creek. And they did so, believing that it was a place of refuge. Under the protection of the United States military, the United States. And there were two families there that had two little girls. One was Vister, and the other was White Buffalo Woman. They were a part of Black Kettle's band. And Vister later spoke of the sense of security that they felt at Sand Creek, especially the night before the attack. They didn't even post night guards. They were so sure that they had been guaranteed and sent. So they had been guaranteed safety and sent to a place of refuge, a sanctuary. Black Kettle had often stated in his quest for peace that he only wanted his people to sleep through the night to get a full night's rest. However, at dawn on the morning of November 29, 1864, the thundering noise, initially mistaken for buffalo, was actually an army of 700 men led by Colonel John M. Shevington. A holy-speaking white man who was also known as the Fighting Parson of the West. And as the shooting began, Black Kettle congregated some of his band around him under the flag of the United States of America, as he had been told to do if he ever ran into conflict, which would signify that his was a friendly camp. And beneath that flag also fluttered the internationally recognized white flag of truce or ceasefire. And the group courageously stood there until they realized that the attack was not going to stop, and they dispersed in panic. What do you do when Hotchkiss guns are firing into the village for them? And David Doe, as a peace chief, however, was the last to abandon his position of perceived safety. Visitor's uncle brought her a pony, and she jumped up on it, and he hit it on its flank, sending it away toward safety. But instead, she turned to search for her little brother. She found him, pulled him up behind her, and they rode away. However, she was wounded in the calf by a bullet and carried the scar for the remainder of her life. Visitor married Wolfton. And both Visitor and White Buffalo Woman miraculously survived the butchery of Chevington's soldiers and volunteer militia, the bloodless Third, who became the bloody Thirdsters. Their families remained with Black Kettle and followed him south, all hoping to find that peaceful haven. And the two were in his camp along the Lodgepole River in 1868 when Lieutenant George Armstrong Custer and his men attacked them. The boy general. David Doe and his wife were killed. And despite his steadfast commitment as a peacemaker chief, those very people with whom he sought to make a lasting, a perpetual peace, killed him. And these two teenage girls by then were among the Tzitzis and the Hinano'ena who reported to Darlington, their agency headquarters, and who eventually settled in the western portion of their 1869 executive order reservation. The two girls reached maturity, married, and had families. And White Buffalo Woman became a doctor of horses, a veterinarian, as we might call it today, and she was a midwife, always in great demand, for we believe that the first hands that touch a baby pass on their ways to them. And the only outward display that marked her experience at Sand Creek was that she never went to sleep without her moccasins securely on her feet for some 74 years. Visitor and White Buffalo Woman are my great-grandmothers. And as Tzitzis na Hinano'ena, we share a cultural memory and cultural legacy. We remember that day, we remember that tragedy, but we also carry a collective inheritance of abundant love, profound teachings, sophisticated philosophies, and deep spirituality that were not destroyed at Sand Creek. And without them, we would not have survived the overpowering oppression of a mighty new nation intent upon claiming everything in its path from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Our history is what it is, heartbreaking and heartwarming. But we need to remember, however, that we are all participants on a human journey, that we walked a road of life that originated back at creation, which includes sweet medicine's great teachings and which opens to a hopeful tomorrow. The road led to Sand Creek in 1864, but it did not end there. The Cheyenne and Arapaho, Jatistais na Hinanoena, survived. And they continue to walk this road of life without end. We were not destroyed, and we continue to remember our deep attachment to land and this place that we were first to call home.
Thank you, Dr. Mann.